and it's really great to see everyone. Some familiar faces of somewhat longer ago and a bit more unfamiliar faces because these days I'm not that much involved anymore. Indeed, I am here as on behalf of the faculty board. Normally the dean would also be here, but he's ill this week, and as portfolio holder education or vice dean of education, it's my great pleasure to have this Lustrum, this 5-year anniversary. I also feel very proud because, as Jelle said, Tini and me were really at the start of this master. We sort of, imagined it long ago. It takes a long time to create a master, and I won't go into those details. We're still struggling with all that stuff. Whenever we start something new in education, it takes fairly long. So I thought, let me tell you where the idea comes from. And the two basic ideas of Spatial, as I see it, are multidisciplinarity and learning by doing. And the learning by doing is something out of my own past, because if I think back on my own education, the only thing I remember is my fieldwork, my master research, because then you do everything yourself. And I bet anybody you ask of the staff, what do you remember of your university days, they will probably say their master research. It's just something that you live, you do that, and then you remember it much better. Well, mine was in Africa. I spent 6 months in Botswana, in a rural village. I went there to do a research into soils and agriculture, but there was no agriculture because it was already the 4th year of a drought year, so there were dead cattle everywhere. It was all about cattle husbandry, so I figured that it would be much more useful if my research would be about grazing capacity in cattle, but I had no idea what that meant. So I went to the university library in Gaborone, University of Botswana, and I found a reader of the Wageningen University explaining how you do grass growth modeling with a nitrogen balance based on the Sahel. And I figured, well, Sahel, Botswana, same difference, both are very dry, so let's try that. I borrowed a PC, no, there weren't any PC. I borrowed a small computer from a Danish meteorologist, thing with a small television screen, 640 by 640 by 420 pixels, 2 floppy drives, one with Turbo Pascal, and the other one I could save my code in, 120 kilobyte floppy drives. This is before Windows, before intranet, this is before anything. The only connection to Europe was a landline telephone, and only a few big companies had those. So I could not discuss this with any supervisor I had, so I just decided to do it. I taught myself programming, I made this grass growth model, and it blew my mind. I really had no idea that you could model the growth of a plant on a daily basis, something they taught in Wageningen, but not in Utrecht. I'm a physical geographer from Utrecht. But still, I did it, I programmed the thing, I learned how to do biomass measurements, and I compared predicted, observed, and I got a certain grazing capacity. But all that I think at that moment, it got ingrained a little bit that, you learn by doing. You don't learn by listening to a teacher. I later realized if I teach in the first year 2 hours of modeling, and I drone on about that, and then in the second year, everybody forgot about that, of course. That's just how our memories work. You only learn what you do yourself. And I also realized you can do a lot more than what you learn than what the teacher tells you. You can step outside the boundaries of what you learn. I knew nothing about cattle, but it's just something that we did have the mistaken idea that physical geographers could do anything. That was something that sort of was the atmosphere that was in our institute in Utrecht. Of course not true, but that's just something that you feel, let's do that, I can do that. And I think that is also a bit behind the philosophy of spatial engineering. The project-based, learning by doing, you don't get everything you need during that project. You don't get all the knowledge you need for your master thesis, but you do it anyway, because you know how to find information. You have this attitude of can do, which is very important, even if later you realize there are things you cannot do. I'm very bad at chemistry, I always have been. And I have my limits in mathematics. You just learn that. So there are limits to what you can do. But you can do a lot more than what people teach you. And the second principle of spatial engineering, the multidisciplinarity, yeah, that's simply ingrained in ITC, I think. Any colleague you ask, and you will ask if anybody who's working on big societal problems, it needs to be multidisciplinary. There's not one discipline that can solve anything. And so, and in long discussions with Tini, you said that how can we teach that? Because you don't learn multidisciplinary after you learn a discipline and then say, yeah, you have to be multidisciplinary. No, it's something you have to learn also. So we came up with this whole idea of projects and mixing people and mixing different disciplines, etc. So that was the beginning of spatial engineering. The name is something else. We intended to call it Designing a Sustainable Future, which is of course a horrible name for a master. I mean, you cannot go to an employer and say, oh yeah, I studied designing a sustainable future. It's a pretentious name. And then somebody from strategy and policy in the elevator of the building said to me, hey Victor, how's your spatial engineering going? And I thought, that's a brilliant name. So it was somebody else who came up with that name, and it stuck. So that's sort of in a nutshell the ideas behind Spatial. Of course, I'm not the most organized person to work with, so Tini did all the organizing, well, a lot of it, and also later, or not so long later, we got a whole team, a core team of designers, of people who also believe in this thing of project-based learning. And then, yeah, we created this great master. I still love the idea of this master, and also I'm very glad to see it is evolving every year. It's not stuck in the past somewhere. So with that, I hope you, so that's a little bit the history of the ideas behind Spatial. With that, I would like to give the floor back to Jelle. I hope you really enjoy this afternoon. I also hope you make contact with each other, sorry, and mingle. And I look forward to all the things we're going to see. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Victor. Yeah, I realized I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Jelle Verda, research coordinator here at ITC, and I did train at Wageningen. And the grass growth model was still in place when I was studying in Wageningen and did my work in South Africa on understanding how cattle moves through grasslands. So hey, we didn't know we had that link, but we do. So there was a short introduction. We are with a fairly small group here. You notice the cameras. There's also a group online. So for the people who are online, if at some point we do a Q&A round, feel free to, in the chat of YouTube, I think it is streamed on, post your questions, and then one of our colleagues will pop the question here as well. So if you hear questions coming in from the back, there's people online who are also participating. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce Gerard van der Steenhoven. Gerard is in the professional advisory board of the program, used to be the director of KNMI, is now part of the Climate Initiative in the Netherlands, but also a full professor here at the faculty. And he would like to reflect a little bit on the program, but also what does the program mean and where could it go in the future? Gerard, can I ask you to share your thoughts?
Yeah, so,
It's a little bit tight.
Yeah, my head is too big.
There's a magnet. You can put it around.
Yeah. Okay, we'll try it again. Yeah, it works. Well, Jelle, thanks a lot. And first, my congratulations, especially to, here it is, thanks, to Victor and Tini for developing this very remarkable program. And I must say, Victor, I really enjoyed your stories of the past. And I have to admit, if I think back about my university days, indeed, you learn the most when you do your master thesis. That's certainly true. Although I also remember the sweating for my lecture, for my exam on electrodynamics, which was horribly difficult. But okay, I won't bore you with that. Tini asked me to say a few words about why on earth spatial engineering. And I immediately give away the title of this talk, the conclusion, we need more spatial engineers. And although indeed I have been member of the professional advisory board that back in 2016 and 17 met approximately 3 or 4 times, I don't remember, whereas external people, because I didn't lecture on this master course, but at that time I was director of KNMI, the national... Which microphone? Oh, I see, no problem. So for the people online, they have missed all these beautiful intros, but I congratulate you. Most important one. And the next slide. So hopefully people online do hear me.
this.
Okay. Are you happy right now? Yeah. Okay. And then what we concluded was more or less can be summarized on this slide on the left side. We said, okay, yes, there is indeed a need for a program like this because many problems have a spatial and temporal extent, as you see over here. It's important to make the link between the human sciences and environmental sciences. A system approach is important, and it is important to have experts who can really handle this information in an integrated fashion. Very good, and the methodology was already explained by Victor. Focus on practical problems, wicked problems as they were called. That's very useful. And I think by and large the program has indeed delivered, as far as I can judge, as an external person, following the advice of the Professional Advisory Board. But then I asked myself the question, okay, this was 7, 8 years ago, and since then the world has developed quite dramatically. And there are issues that we didn't think of in the board so many years ago, because simply they were not discussed in the media, they were not discussed in scientific fora, and although the problems may have existed, the question is whether these problems are still, or have become so urgent that people with an education, with a master's degree in spatial engineering could indeed handle these problems. So what I did is, I started thinking, well, if you look, for instance, at this graph, this well-known pie chart of big planetary challenges, planetary boundaries, you see tons of problems, whether it is climate change, biosphere integrity, novel entities, meaning the plastic pollution in the oceans, freshwater changes of biochemical flows of phosphorus and nitrogen. All these problems are often depicted in such a way. This is the safe operating space, and you see all these boundaries that have been trespassed enormously. Is it indeed true that people with a background in spatial engineering could handle these problems? Now, it's very easy to give an answer like, well, that's probably yes, because, well, they are so broadly educated, it'll work. But my approach is slightly different. I decided to take 1 or 2 concrete, wicked problems and see, well, whether indeed the education will be okay, the program is okay as far as I can judge, and also address some of the new developments in the field of wicked problems, climate change, biodiversity reduction, etc., and what kind of advice follows from these big reports, and to finally conclude whether indeed the program is fitted to the problems of today, but more importantly, to the problems of tomorrow. And my answer will be yes, but the arguments are more interesting than the basic conclusion, of course. So let's take the first problem. It's amazing from my perspective as a person who has been working on the field of climate change and biodiversity for more than 10 years now, that all of a sudden about 3 or 4 years ago, the big issue of healthcare came up, whereas the problem existed already 10 years ago. In this professional advisory board, we somehow never discussed the healthcare problem. But the healthcare problem is an enormous, wicked problem. Because look at the numbers. The CO2 footprint, of the healthcare system, hospitals, elderly homes, etc., in the Netherlands is 7 to 8%, larger than from any single company in the Netherlands. And in fact, larger than, for instance, the airlines together in the Netherlands. It's a huge problem. At the same time, because of climate change, the healthcare will need to be expanded, because there are all kinds, as people call it in the health world, exposure pathways. What is meant is that because of, for instance, let's see whether this works, it's always a challenge. It seems to work here, but not there. Anyhow, I point it out in this way. Extreme weather will lead to injuries. Higher temperatures and bad air quality will lead to more asthma, more respiratory diseases. There will be health problems and especially also gastroenterologic problems. This one is also very tricky because of the changing climate bands in the world. Insects, viruses, what have you, they will all move to more northerly latitudes, causing new diseases. And they have all to be handled by this same healthcare system, whereas at the same time, there's a lack of personnel, there's a lack of budget, it's growing way too large. And it has to change its CO2 footprint. So this is a classical example, in my view, of a wicked problem. You have economic issues, you have climate issues, you have health issues, and it has to change. And just to see how such a problem can get very close to us in the Netherlands, have a look at this example of the tiger mosquito, which is an example of this exposure pathway. when we had our discussions in the professional advisory board, this was the spreading, and you immediately see it is a spatio-temporal problem. This was the spreading of the tiger mosquito in Europe, a bit in Italy and a bit in the south of France. 70 years later, there's an enormous increase in the spreading of this little mosquito. And all these horrible diseases, which I hardly can pronounce, but they are pretty horrible, now are also occurring in the Netherlands. Because look at the Netherlands. It has this little mosquito has been observed at least 7 to 8 places in our country. So you see that a problem that we were not aware of, although it existed, back in 2016 is now a crucial problem, and all the hospital directors are really sweating a lot how to solve this wicked problem. And possibly people with a training in spatial engineering could contribute to this. The second and last example I will use is also a very familiar one, and that's the nitrogen problem, or if you wish, the food and agriculture transition. And again, this is an example which we did not discuss in the Professional Advisory Board in 2016, whereas since then, with all the protesting farmers that you have heard of, all the enormous issues of nitrogen deposition, the problems of the cattle, the feedstocks, it is really a huge problem. And look at it. The CO2 footprint is again enormous, even larger than the healthcare sector, 12%. A nitrogen footprint of 60% of all the nitrogen emissions in the Netherlands. And now it comes, this is a crucial picture because it is not just a number of farmers who have to reduce the number of cows they have, but it is a completely intertwined problem. There's food production, it's related to the technology they use, to the culture we have on eating meat, health issues, city issues, governance issues, biodiversity reduction, which is enormous in the Netherlands because of all the nitrogen deposits. So this example shows that wicked problems are very intertwined problems. And the question is, how do you solve problems like this? The same applies, of course, to almost any sector you know of. If you want to make cities in a more sustainable way, you again are met with all kinds of interactions that are complicated acting together. Now, this issue of the intertwinedness of problems, of wicked problems, of course, is addressed in spatial engineering. But interestingly enough, there have been a number of reports that were published since a couple of years ago, so that's after the Professional Advisory Board met and after the start of spatial engineering, who all came with the same conclusion. And whether it is the IPCC report on climate change, the 6th assessment report of 2021, the report of the climate task force started by the Royal Academy and the funding agency, or the International Science Council, who last year published a report on the science for sustainability, their conclusions is always the same. One has to use a system approach. And I think that as compared to 7 years ago, this is a signal which is stronger than at the time we met as a professional advisory board. The call for more a systematic approach, which is interdisciplinary, which is hands-on. So Victor was entirely right so many years ago when he thought about that, but now it is, if you wish, more institutionalized. All these very big, important reports all came with the same conclusion. And what does it mean if you want to work on a system approach? And there are many experts in this field, but it's good to summarize that and see whether you recognize that as an alumnus of the educational program. Oh, I'm probably walking too, okay, now the camera is looking at it. What does it mean? It means that if you have a system, whether it is the old healthcare system, you have to phase it out and to phase with a new system which is sustainable, which doesn't emit any CO2, which can handle all these new medical diseases that they are confronted with. And this is the real challenge. You have an old system, you have a new system. And as soon as the old system is declining, there will be protests because people are losing their interests, are losing their power, and there's a new system. So as Jan Rotmans, a very famous professor of system transitions in Rotterdam, has always, there will always be this chaotic phase. And you have to be prepared to that. So studying this transition, analyzing this transition, and supervising this transition is really the challenge of the academics of the future. And you see all kinds of ingredients. You have to involve the stakeholders from the start. You have to have an expert involvement. You have to have the geotemporal overview, the spatial temporal overview. You have to always make the relation between the technical issues and the social issues, and you have to talk about business models and governance. Only then, if you involve all these aspects, can you successfully manage these system transitions. However, is it true? Does this approach work? And that's the interesting development as well of the last 7 years. There's a very nice example in the Netherlands where this concept of system approach from the Rotterdam School of Scientists has been tried out and proved to work. And that's in the beautiful islands of Schiermonnikoog in the north of the Netherlands. Many of you may have visited it. It's probably the most northerly island of the Netherlands. If you have a few days of holiday, please go there. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful place. And it has everything. It's an island, so it's almost a local laboratory. It's a living lab, if you wish. And it has exactly the problems that we are faced with worldwide. It has a wonderful natural preserved area with the dunes and the sea and the sand. It's all remarkable with all a very interesting biological environment. And there were 8 farmers. 8. So that's nicely concise, small. And the challenge for the local government in this island was, how do we make the transition? Because these farmers were polluting the natural area, which was bad for the tourism. But these guys, these farmers, wanted to have a reasonable business model, of course. So they started the project about 6 years ago, I guess, led by Jan Willem Eresman, a biodiversity professor at Leiden University. And there they started introducing all these aspects of a system transition that I just mentioned. They involved all the stakeholders, the farmers, from the very beginning. There are 7 because the number 8 dropped out. A pretty natural thing if you want to guide the system transition. They involved the local governments, they involved an expert, Jan Willem Eresman. They tried to look at the full picture, including tourism, including the natural preservation issues. And indeed, they realized they have to reduce their livestock, which is a big issue in Dutch politics. But they realized, yes, we can only make a sustainable island of Schiermonnikoog if indeed we change our business model. So not just plain farming and producing milk, but rather changing to a different product, diversify. And they succeeded in reducing their livestock and their nitrogen emission by a very substantial percentage. And to me, although the example is not perfect and a lot can be said about it, which you can find in this book, it shows that in principle the system approach is a good one. So that's a good sign. So now let's go back to where it all began, and that is the spatial engineering program. So now I ask myself, after having studied these examples, the successful one, the concepts that we learned about after the start of the spatial engineering program, how does that compare to the schedule of spatial engineering, the subjects addressed by spatial engineering, the concept of spatial engineering. And of course, most people here in the audience know a lot more about all these subjects than I do. So I more or less globally looked at these concepts and tried to find out how does this compare to the requirements that follow from these reports that I just mentioned, from IPCC, NWO, the ISC, and to the examples from the system people. And then you can make a nice tick box, and that's always something I like. You can say, okay, this is what the people from the system transitions tell us that a transition should the items that should be taken care of, and to what extent does spatial engineering actually look at these issues. And actually now you come with a very positive conclusion. Most of the issues that you have to address, especially of course the expertise on the geotemporal overview, involve both the human side and the environmental side. All of that can be positively ticked off by the master program in spatial engineering. I'm a bit uncertain about changes in the business model, but I'm happy to be corrected. And of course, for a master's student, it's hard to involve all stakeholders from the very beginning. Maybe you're lucky and you are doing your project at a company where that can be done, but this is not completely ensured. So my conclusion is that by and large, although we may want to improve things, as Victor was already mentioned, this is indeed the type of program, the type of academic training we need to address the major societal problems that we have. And the good news is that at the same time that we are drawing this conclusion, our governing board at this university has decided to establish, and the director just has left because of other duties, Cheryl de Boer, a climate center which is using the same type of concept for projects that are being developed right now in the framework of the climate center. So I am here with a very positive message that by and large, spatial engineer is indeed addressing the needs that have been emphasized by many European and worldwide reports on the required transitions we have to make worldwide. But before concluding, there's one more issue I would like to mention, and that's this one. You have to realize that this approach, based on an integral approach, based on interdisciplinarity, based on transdisciplinarity, is somewhat different from what we are accustomed to at university trainings. I mean, in the traditional way of setting up science, it's always excellence-driven. You want to be the best, publish something in Nature. It is monodisciplinary. You want to be very good in your water technology or in your whatever technology, and it is based on a very competitive system of calls issued by a funding agency. However, if you work in our domain of system transitions, of spatial engineering, it is mission-oriented. You want to be sure that the farmers in Schiermonnikoog have a healthy living and the nature is preserved in the future. It has to be transdisciplinary. You have to involve not only the experts, but also the other stakeholders. It's based on system change and co-creation. That requires a different approach. And now when I talk to various university boards in the Netherlands, I notice people say yes to this different approach, but they find it hard because we have been telling all the students, all the tenure trackers, all the professors to work for 40 years to work along this system. However, if you want to address the new way of addressing wicked problems, you have to change. And that's a challenge, but fortunately there are various climate centers who all have adopted this new way of working. And in that sense, I'm sure that there is a healthy future also for the master degree in spatial engineering. And therefore I would like to conclude by a big congratulations to all people who finished this degree already and to all staff members who have been involved in setting up this program. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Gerard. We have a little bit of time. I don't know if there's any concrete questions when it comes to the presentation that Gerard has just given. Otherwise, you can also think about it because later on he will join a discussion panel on the program. But if there's any questions right now that you're like, I would like to know this, please raise your hand. And otherwise, I have a question. As a professional, also looking at climate change, but also advising the program, what would you advise the students or the recent graduates of this program on how to tackle finding their position in the job market? What is the message that you would like to give them to tell future employers, well, this is what I can do and this is why I am special?
Well, following what Victor just said at the beginning, I would make two remarks. The one is your concrete experience with a practical job at a company or at an institution, what you really did, because that is more convincing than whether you had a A-level or B-level for a certain exam. And second, to show that you are aware of the fact that any wicked problems that you will be confronted with will always contain aspects that are new to you. And that you are enthusiastic to address new problems, also containing aspects that you've never heard of. Imagine you are employed or you're applying for a position at an academic hospital, whereas you don't have any training in the medical sciences. Then you have to show your willingness to learn a little bit about medical science. It's not that hard. It's grossly overrated. And at the same time, when you are willing to investigate time in a new subject, that you have an eye for this, for the fact that it is an integral approach, a systematic approach that is required if you really want to work on a system change.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no other questions at this point, I would like to invite our next speaker, and that is Kisanet Haile Molla. She is a graduate from this program, but also founder of the Spatial Engineers Without Borders, and I think you work with the World Bank together nowadays. Yeah. And I'll leave the rest to you.
Thank you. Is it?
Yes, this
Hi.
is on.
Yeah.
You have to click it over.
Do I have to? Oh, okay. Is it audible? Oh, it was supposed to be full screen so that they could see my shoe.
Sure.
It was supposed to be full picture, the whole picture.
The microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you have to switch the microphone on.
He said
it?
it's good.
Oh, it's good. Okay.
I mean the picture itself. Well, never mind. I was going to show you the shoe. That was the whole point, but it's okay. No keynote speech if there is no this kind of clumsiness, right? Okay, here we go. I was going to start. Oh, well, I have always imagined giving a keynote speech. That's how I wanted to start. Yeah, really. Okay, and in my speech I said, apparently I used to like bigger shoes because I was wearing a huge giant shoe and I was going to make a speech about that, but well, not happening anymore. But I was going to say, oh, that's me getting a prize when I was elementary school. And I picked the picture because it was funny. Well, looking at the whole picture, it was funny. And it kind of shows how ambitious I was based on the shoe and how ambitious I was on making the strides I want to make in life. So, okay, but before diving into the strides, I want to say defining spatial engineering has always been a challenge for me. Every time I tell people I'm a spatial engineer, I silently pray that they don't ask me what it is about because it's another 30 minutes of conversation trying to explain what it is about. So who is in the same boat? Yeah? Well, our PDP was supposed to help with that, no? Okay, but seriously, that's also what makes us spatial. We are like a secret sauce to every project. Every company or organization needs a spatial engineer because we are a glue between technical and non-technical. We're empathic engineers that tackle different type of wicked problems. Well, at least that's what we're trying to do. Okay, so whether you end up working on data visualization and scientific communication like Chiara, most of you know, or oil palmer agronomist like Fauzan, or a videographer like Demi, a software developer like Visrat, business consultant like Sander, or a modeler like me at the World Bank. What an adventure. The roles we embody as a spatial engineers are as diverse as we all are, and with our unique perspectives and shaped by our individual background and experiences. The freedom, flexibility, and versatility of the field not only allows us to explore various career paths, but also allows us to empower and makes us create a significant impact across different sectors and also communities. For me, at least, that was the key thing for me. The flexibility and versatility of it was something important. For instance, I co-founded a company, CWAP, with the best team, Sander, Bisrat, Chiara. You guys are awesome. Some of them are online. Bisrat is here. I love you guys. We work on projects like Spatial Development Framework, where we collaborate with countries to work on creating structured planning system. In our consultancy, we deploy skills like spatial analysis, project management, visualization, spatial multi-criteria evaluation, video making, because we had to promote our company ourselves. Programming, we develop our website ourselves as well. Stakeholder engagement, stakeholder analysis, which was my favorite topic, still is. And another one, I founded a foundation that aimed to support those affected by the war in Ethiopia. We work on advocating for peace and stand up against injustice. With the foundation, we have reached over 3 million people, helping to amplify our voices for the cause that's deeply personal for me, but also global in its implications. Here we imply skills like project management, governance, stakeholder engagement, IT, among others. And at the World Bank, which I bet most of you are interested to know, my practice, which is the Transport Global practice, works on ensuring that everyone has access to efficient, safe, and affordable mobility, doing so with much smaller climate footprint. And it enhances the resilience of transport and trade supply chain so that developing countries can adapt to changing global circumstances and emerging challenges. I'm involved in different projects, from data analysis supporting freight transport models to passenger decarbonization models. Skills such as at the bank, specifically in my department, we use problem-solving capabilities, data analysis, international intellectual skills, speaking, our oral exams didn't go unnoticed. Research, comprehensive stakeholder engagement, which is very important. These are some of the skills that are relevant to our work and which I think aligns with our SE program. Each challenge is a piece in the puzzle of global development shaped by the very skill we acquire right here in this program. In all of my engagement, though, what I have learned is the best skill is actually your motivation, openness to learn, and your hard work. You're not expected to know everything. You will always encounter something new. In my journey, I had my ups and downs. There were times when I struggled, when I didn't have €1 to buy food. True, very true. And the war back home meant I couldn't hear from my family, which was the hardest thing in my life because my family meant everything to me. But here's what I want to emphasize most today. Well, they gave me 20 minutes and I'm trying to relax, but I wrote a speech for 5 minutes, so I'm just gonna take my time. But what I want to emphasize the most today is I want to say enjoy every moment of your life. Life is a collection of moments. The conversations we're having right now, the late night studies, the family times, the walks, the bikes, the laughters, the kisses, the loves, the movies, all of these things in your life, cherish every bit of them. And for all the budding engineers, the world isn't just your oyster. It is your map to redraw, your space to define, and your challenge to embrace. Who was that who said, life is like a disco, so no matter how the music is going, we should just dance. And now that I'm a keynote speaker and that I have the stage, I want to use this opportunity, like every other, to say thank you to my family who got me here, who have been always there for me and who make me celebrate life every day. And it's so lovely to see you here today. Thank you. That was my keynote speech.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to ask the audience, do you have any questions? No. Any inspirational thoughts that sparked your mind?
Bring it on. Okay.
As spatial engineers, we struggle to define what we study. I was saying that as spatial engineers, we always, I have to say, struggle to define what we are studying, especially, with different cultural backgrounds. Yeah. I'm here in Netherlands studying something no one knows at home what I'm doing. So I wanted to ask you, how do you define it, or how you usually would explain?
Well, didn't I say that? Didn't I say I pray inside so no one asks me? And
exactly.
Well, I mostly use this phrase where I tell them that we are empathic engineers and we tackle wicked problems. And they're like, wicked problems? Yeah, problems like, for example, the SDG goals. And then, yeah. That's the kind of, I find my way out like that.
Yes. Also for me, I can add, I always start with, it's not about space up there, it's about space here. I did not want to be an astronaut, nothing about the space here.
Yeah. See? Interesting.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I am curious.
Okay.
So, you came to ITC, you did spatial engineering, you met with new people, new experiences, but what is the one thing that surprised you most when you were studying here?
Oh, it's so hard. You should have asked me before so I could think about it.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. One thing that I find something new. Okay, maybe, I don't know. It was nice. I find a lot of people. I think maybe in my character it's like I met loose people, so it was kind of easy. But I think I find it a bit, maybe this is not good, or I don't know. But a lot of people smoke here, so that was something I noticed.
Talking about wicked problems.
Wicked problems. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I steal the microphone from you before you leave? Thank you so much. I think with that we are very quickly going through the program, which is nice because that leaves us lots and lots of time for interaction later on. I see a few people with empty glasses in front of them. This is a moment to quickly walk up to the bar if you want to, and then we'll go to short speeches by alumni, staff, and colleagues.
Well, no, it's the problem was not on my end. No, the problem was it was muted. I forgot to switch it on. The channel was started to go like interference. No, computer is not working on the Alright, I'm just going to take a quick bus.
And now, of course, it is a challenge to get everybody focused again on what's happening in the front of room. can I slowly invite everybody to come back, take your seats, and then we will continue with the central program. We will have a continuation of having drinks later on, but please come and join me here, otherwise I feel so lonely on my own, talking to people. Emile, Victor, can we please continue? Slowly, slowly, we're going to break up the nice conversations here and we're going to continue there. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Sachita to come forward, but I heard that she can't come forward because she is online. So I'm going to continue. We have a number of short speeches, about 5 minutes a person, 6 persons in a row. And the first contribution will be online, and I'll leave the introduction to the video.
Graduated in the summer of 2022. When I moved to the Netherlands back in 2020, it was my first time living away from home. But ever since the beginning, I had this very strong feeling of community and friendship and love with my friends in my class and the people who I was living with at ITC Hotel.
Okay, let's try this again.
From Nepal who were doing their
It's now completely muted, I think.
When I moved to the Netherlands back in 2020, it was my first time living away from home. But ever since the beginning, I had this very strong feeling of community and friendship and love with my friends in my class and the people who I was living with at the ITC Hotel, and also people from Nepal who were doing their masters at the ITC like I was. I have been racking my brain since yesterday trying to think of a memory or anecdote to share with you. I've been trying to single out a funny memory or a memory where somebody was so drunk they started to play tennis as if it was badminton, if you know who that is, you know. But yeah, like I said, I can't really single out a memory to share with you today. But I would like to talk about all the birthdays that I celebrated with my friends for the 2 years of my life. Not just my birthdays, but birthdays of my friends as well. There is only so much a telephone call back home can do to make you feel special on your birthday, and but when you have friends who are living with you in the same situation as you, it's a completely different story. In my case, we used to surprise the birthday person on their birthday with cakes, presents, and cards. It just brings such a feeling of nostalgia thinking of all the surprises that I planned with my friends who felt like family and who still feel like family. But as one wise man said on his graduation from ITC, nothing lasts forever, and it is the flow of life that takes you places, gives you memories, and you move on. I am happy that I made such good lifelong friends at the ITC. After graduating from ITC, I moved to the UK to do my PhD at Coventry University, and I'm on second year right now. My master's thesis was related to road traffic crashes and how I did spatial analysis of them at Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And my PhD somehow links to my master's thesis, as right now I'm looking into how pedestrians perceive automated vehicles, especially at road crossings. Moving on to serious stuff other than friendships and birthdays, I've also been asked to do a presentation of my 3-minute thesis at this event today. So 3-minute thesis is a competition that is held at university level and also between universities, where a researcher talks about their research using a single picture or a static slide. I had this competition and I took part in it from Coventry University a few months ago, and I was awarded the 2nd place, and Tini asked me to do a presentation of it so I could share it with you guys. So here's my 3-minute thesis presentation. My 3-minute thesis was titled Eyes Don't Lie. My presentation goes like this. Imagine walking to your office one morning. As you're trying to cross a road, you see a car approaching you. When you try to make eye contact with the driver to make sure they see you, to your surprise, you notice the driver is reading a newspaper and their hands are on the steering wheel. Then you realize it must be a high-tech, self-driving car you might have been seeing on social media like Instagram or LinkedIn. Would you still feel safe enough to cross the road and trust that it will prioritize your safety? But you may also be thinking, it is a machine, who knows when it might make a mistake? Maybe you will decide to trust the self-driving vehicle after you hear about my research. When I say self-driving vehicle or a car, I mean that it can make decisions on the road itself and it does not need a driver to navigate. Some examples of popular companies who are researching and developing self-driving cars are Tesla and General Motors. Self-driving vehicles are expected to reduce the number of road accidents and improve efficiency and safety of supply chain industry. The UK government has claimed in many instances that self-driving vehicles will be on roads in the next few years, even as early as 2026, but there still is a lot of room for research and testing. I like to think of my research as a small but equally important part of the big picture. Currently, I am using a virtual reality headset, and with the headset, as you can see, the participants can navigate themselves in a virtual environment. As you might have guessed, it is quite dangerous to have participants walking in the real world for my experiment. I nearly got run over trying to take that picture. This is where virtual reality comes in to ensure the safety of participants in my study. In the virtual environment, I want to track at what the participants are looking at when they are making their decisions to either cross or not cross the road. I can then compare this data with variables like the time they need to make a road crossing decision or the time they need to reach the other side of the road. Another thing that I will be doing is having interviews with the participants to get deeper insight into their road crossing decisions. This way, I will be able to collect eye tracking data as well as data on the mindset of the participant through the interviews. These two kinds of data will enhance the research process to better understand both visual attention of the participants and their user experience in the virtual environment. Ultimately, this will assist in understanding how pedestrian behaviors impact the flow of self-driving vehicles on roads. This also gives insight on how to develop and design self-driving vehicles so that pedestrians feel safe around them. Additionally, the use of pedestrians' mindset data and opinions will be a helpful tool in terms of stakeholder engagement for acceptance of self-driving vehicles on roads. After all, they are meant to help improve our safety on roads and improve the quality of our lives. So, in the near future, when you see a self-driving vehicle on the road, I hope you remember the extent of research that's been done right now and feel safe enough to cross. Thank you. I'm sure you will hear a lot more on what it actually means to be a spatial engineer from this event. It is hard work and it does seem scary at times, but one parting advice that I would give to you is that you only need to ask for help if you are in a doubt, maybe to your friends or to your professors, and that you are there for a reason, which is to learn and to make memories. Thank you for listening and I wish you luck also. Have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.
Lovely presentation. To be honest, I'm not a spatial engineer. I'm not teaching in the spatial engineering program, and this was actually amazing to me to see that from this program you can go into how do people experience self-driving cars. I would not have imagined that that was also a career path that you could take. You, of course, all knew, or was it also new to you to learn this?
I didn't see this comment.
But did you see it continue? Now I would like to give the word to another alumna from our program. And I was told Thomas Groen would be here to give a speech. But she's not shown up? No? Sorry. It's unfortunate. You know, technology is not my thing. It just means that we'll continue with another video message of another person who left us a message. Couldn't be here today, unfortunately. Careers make you travel internationally and you can't always make it on site. But a nice video. Let's see if it starts again.
Hello guys, my name is Fauzan Muzaki from Indonesia. Currently, I'm working as an agronomist at a Lustrum company. First of all, I would like to say congratulations to the first Lustrum of Spatial Engineering ITC. Yay! One advice for you all, please go outside, see other horizon, talk and sit with farmers, shopkeepers, even government. Find and hear their complexities, because complexities beyond words written on paper and our map generated by machine algorithm. You will be mature, wise, and relevant once you experience it. And lastly, Earth it us. And that's why we join spatial engineering, right? That's from me. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Well, fortunately, the next speaker I have seen earlier today. John, do you want to tell us a little bit about what brought you here, where you are now, and what you're looking forward to? Please. Is it on? Yes, it is on. All yours.
Okay, thanks. Cool. Thanks a lot. It's really nice to be here. As you asked, my name is John. I work with Kids Royal Tropical Institute in Amsterdam, where we work on agricultural health systems as well. Today, I would be talking about this title, which I thought a lot about before I could decide. Solving problems actually means care. And for those of us who are here to study the spatial engineering, and those who are graduates, I think this would resonate a lot with you. In the application to become a student, these were some of the keywords that came up in the program: natural disasters, conflicts, and epidemics. And my mind immediately think of this book, which says everything comes from somewhere, which says that all of these things, nothing falls from heaven. Even if it falls from heaven, it lands on earth. So these things come and happen somewhere, disasters and all these things. And that's why we are geographers. We are spatial engineers. And in that sense, every problem comes from somewhere. And the next question, which I'm talking again about, is who actually gives the care? And you would all agree with me that I and you, as a spatial engineer, we are the ones who actually are meant to actually give the care to everyone. And we do this by becoming experts, by becoming consultants, by becoming researchers, whichever thing we eventually become. The ulterior motive is to be able to be solution-oriented and provide care to solving problems. Now, who needs care? Well, this is perhaps the biggest question we should always ask ourselves. And the summary is every person needs care, actually. Struggling to decide where to stand now. Oh, that's true. Smart. Yes, thanks. So every person needs care. There's this conference I attended, and the keywords from there were one life, one earth, and one planet, which is one earth. Every single person deserves care. Our environment, our where we live also deserves care. So we need to be concerned about the human health. My experience with studying leptospirosis here for my master's also made me to be more exposed to about the how not just diseases comes from how we interact, but also from animals and our environment. Also, when we talk about climate change itself, it's really about our earth, that we need to care about it. But more importantly today, we think about people who actually are in danger or at risk of a certain problem, which we started talking about in the first slide. Now, and how do we care? It's good for us to understand the problem and determine potential solution pathway. These are things we learned about during this program. It's just good to look and think about it again and see how we actually do this. We observe and analyze local patterns. We actually go to those places, just like the presenters have said, and not everything is written in Word. And then we also co-create interventions. This is the key thing for us, not just to actually create something that works, but also something that can be sustained. It's for us to go there and really plan with them. So I'll give 4 projects which I currently work on that tries to address these ways of caring. First, in Pakistan, we had some projects there where we talk about tuberculosis there, and there is a huge burden of tuberculosis there, which we also call TB. And for us to actually understand the problem, we need to estimate how much of that exists there. And then we try to determine one of the solution pathways to actually increase access to health services. We also did quite a robust project on how to improve that analysis. Then we also want to actually observe local patterns. We do not think, the general idea is that people who are farther away from health facilities have low access. But when we actually go there to actually observe there using monitoring through the telecom mobility data connected to satellites, we see that actually that is not always true. And then from there we can co-create the interventions that would be relevant for them. Just some maps, simply because we are spatial to see. We see the burden in different places, and for example, there are some, maybe that also needs care. We also see there are some places that have high rates of this TB in different parts, and this is the first step in which to understand what is the problem. And then we also did some studies to actually think about what is the access to care. And then when we compare places where there are cases and places where that they have access to care, we do not see any clear correlation here, because we see that the diseases is occurring almost everywhere. And therefore, we have to go deeper to the next stage to analyze some local patterns. And here we see how people travel to different facilities and to also understand their mobility. And from this, we can see some places, some people actually prefer to go further away, even though there are some facilities that are nearby to them. And finally, we came up with this intervention planner that helps to really plan for the local stakeholders there where to go to really give people access to other treatments for those who actually otherwise would not have those access. And this is a way in which we can co-create with them. And every month, we do send out these things for them to actually look at those places to increase the access of people to care, for example. The take-home message for today is really that more than ever before, the world needs you and me, and as a spatial engineer, it is important that we show this care, we show this empathy, not just by completing projects, but actually very mission-oriented to ensure that what we actually do solves the problem. And I could say, in all honesty, that this is indeed the best place to be if you're a student right now or you are thinking about considering this master's program. This is where you get to learn. And if you're already working on this pathway, always learn to contextualize the problems and learn to co-design and co-create interventions. This is a way, indeed, we can show care and give that care to everyone, indeed. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, John. Before you take that off, maybe we can see whether there's anybody in the audience who think, how did you get to the point where you are now? Are there any questions in the audience?
Yes, it's not a big question. Maybe I missed. So what is your working title now? Are you a researcher? Are you, what are you doing, please?
Yes, good question. Well, my official title is an epidemiologist, which I'm still trying to live up to. But I study disease, I study patterns of how infectious, especially infectious diseases occur with spatial and technical knowledge. And I also provide advice to the clients as a consultant in a way how they can actually tackle these problems. I also study health systems by monitoring the availability of health staffs and the services that is provided in these places. So that's a bit of a summary of what I do mostly.
Yes, thank you. If I could ask, how could you describe a day? But I guess it's difficult because you do so many different stuff.
Yeah, there's so many projects. Yeah.
I will give it to you, AZ.
What got you into geohealth? Why?
Good question. Well, in my motivation letter, I could say that what I wrote for my application is that I grew up with a dad who is a geographer and a mom who is a nurse. And I've always thought about a cool idea of combining these two professions. And for the past 6-7 years, I've been on this path, trying to connect these two disciplines. Thanks.
Any other questions?
thanks, John. Very nice talk, a very nice example. Also with all the others, what you can do with spatial engineering. Now, you know, in spatial engineering, we always try to merge 3 disciplines. So you just said you merged 2 disciplines, right? The one from your father and the one from your mother. So I was just wondering, is nursing or caring, is it the more technical engineering or is it more spatial planning? I was just curious how you would look into this.
Well, yeah, I would say it depends on which particular part of nursing. But my mom cares for people. She started as a midwife. I would say that's not very technical. And my dad's more the geographer. I would say, yeah, grew eventually to become a surveyor and an engineer. I would say that's indeed far more technical.
Well, we have time for one more question. Is there anybody else with a question?
Oh, Victor.
Yeah, I have
Victor?
John, if you need any new knowledge now, and maybe Kisanet also, where do you get that? Online, you ask others, you read it, or you follow a YouTube course? How do you get your new knowledge that you need?
What? Geoversity? Well, I took it. Yeah, well, I still took a course from Geoversity, so I can recommend that. How do I get new knowledge? Well, last week I was in a conference for disaster risk, multi-hazards and health, and through that I could say I could learn a lot from what people do. Also, I have to read a lot of articles on research, what has been done, the methods, but also on health research. But also I work in a team where there are colleagues who are far more expert into the health field. We even have medical doctors on the team, and I also learned from that. And just as you said, you also learn by doing, in honesty. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm going to look around once more, and otherwise I'm going to say thank you very much for the very nice presentation. I hope that also the keynote, the first keynote that we got, inspired you for some conversations later this afternoon.
Absolutely.
Then the last speaker will be online again. I'll take the microphone, thank you. There's no questions coming in online on the stream? No? Then we will continue. I saw some words of recognition. You might see her walking around in the building every once in a while. Geoversity was just mentioned and she's also involved, but she'll tell you a little bit about that in a second.
Hello everyone. Here's a video from a very old alumni. To give you an idea how old, do you remember the form that you needed to fill in when you started your studies at ITC? The one that you filled in your very first week? Well, in my year, that one still had date of arrival in the Netherlands as a required question. And as a Dutch student, I was like, well, my date of birth, I guess. What I mean to say is, back in the days, it wasn't very usual for Dutch students to study at ITC. But I guess many things changed since. At least the building and the coffee machine, which I promise is an upgrade. For those of you who never had a coffee in the old building, ask your teachers. I had to dilute that coffee with like half a liter of milk to even like it a little bit. And now I just chug espressos all day. Yeah, that's right. I'm still in Langezijde sometimes. But I'll get back to that later. What I liked about spatial engineering so much is that we do science that immediately links to real-world challenges. We know our challenges are wicked, yet we work towards making the world's most pressing challenges just slightly less complex. It took a while for me to realize that what I actually enjoyed most was the outreach, making presentations and explaining the relevance of the work we were doing more than what exactly we were doing. And also listening to teachers who were really good at explaining just this. And that's how I got into the work that I'm doing today. These days I'm a freelance reporter, camera woman and video editor for Geoversity, which is ITC's lifelong learning platform with high quality geospatial content. These videos aim to translate complex science into understandable science for everyone. What I love most about it is that we're not just explaining research methods. We're really looking beyond that, looking at why we're doing these things and also sort of highlighting the passion that all these researchers have for their work. And some of those researchers are actually also alumni.
My hope would be that eventually our actions and understanding of extreme data is so good that we can sort of make sure that nobody dies or is affected by extreme heat.
And I also like to show that research doesn't always go to plan.
Go away.
Oh my god.
The bee loves our grass. Oh. Oh.
The bee got these little animals, have you?
That's the grass we want to return.
For me, not everything went to plan either. At the end of my studies, I really thought I would be making early action protocols for the International Federation of Red Cross, Red Crescent Societies, as this was something that I was investing a lot of time in during my studies. But then life took a different turn and I became a camera woman and a reporter for adventure reality shows, which is really something different. But I liked it and I don't want to give up on it. But then I was also really happy that this other chance came along, which was to make these videos for Geoversity. And that's actually where all my passions come together. I can now work on the science, I can do the storytelling, and get to work with people who are really passionate about the science that I once studied. If there's one thing that I learned that I wish for everyone, it's to just enjoy whatever you're busy with now. Don't pin yourself to a specific point on the horizon. And if you ever get stressed, just remember it could have been much worse.
So, long list of pitches, long list of alumni, long list of stories. And I think the final pitch, Thomas, can I invite you to tell us a little bit about your view on spatial engineering?
Yes. I use the clicker. Thank you. Oh, fantastic. Technical advice. I love that. I'm really happy to see so many people here. Of course, the current students, but also the old students. It's really nice to have kind of a, how do you call that? I forgot the word for it. A réunie, that's the word I'm looking for, right? A reunion of everybody and seeing how people are doing. And I'm also really happy with the videos that came in. And the question was, of course, to look a bit at the past and then see how are we going to the future. I think Kisanet put it very nicely. Actually, this is, a concatenation of moments, or now, how did you say it, right? So I thought, let's look also at the current moment. Where are we at the moment? So this was my preparation for the pitch. I looked at some newspapers, and this one came on my timeline in one of my social medias. This is actually from the New Yorker, so it's a cartoon describing it. So we see here the European continent, and it's moving to the right side on this picture, and there's an airplane coming in, and then there's this quote from the captain saying, "Captain informed us that the arrival will be somewhat delayed because of Europe's ongoing shift to the right." And this was, of course, published last week when there were the elections for the European Committee. And when I saw it, I thought it was funny, but I was also a little bit disturbed by it. And then I thought, why am I disturbed by this picture? Two reasons I found out. And the first reason is that obviously this cartoonist is not a cartographer. Because he's saying, he's drawing the European continent moving to the east, and he's making a claim about it moving to the right. Yeah, we all know that it's just moving to the right because the convention is to plot the north to the top of the picture. But if we would have a different convention, then actually in this picture we would be shifting to the left, right? Anyway, that's of course not the true reason why I'm a little bit troubled by it, because as an academic, green guy or whatever, I'm of course a little bit left-oriented, so shift to the right might mean it's going a little bit different direction than I would like it to go. And then I thought, should I be worried about that as a scientist? Well, actually not. As a scientist, I shouldn't care about political flavor, I should care about facts. That's really important, right? We need to get the facts on the table, and we should always inform society what are the right or the smart decisions, and if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. That's actually what matters. So this should not be troubling me, and still it did. And one of the reasons why I think it did is that at the moment we're still using this really old gradient of organizing political parties, where it comes from the French Revolution, where the more progressive parties are on the left of the chair of the parliament, and the more conservative parties are on the right. We now have a number of parties that are not really left or right. There I would call them fact-free. And what they do is they basically simplify the story. And we just had a very nice introduction by Gerard showing that we have to think in systems. It's a rather complex story that we have to tell, and we have to explain and defend with data. So I am a little bit troubled by this, not because I'm worried that we're moving to the right, but that we are having some parties that are using this right-wing story, but giving it a simplistic twist. And I think this is only a moment. This will pass, because we will find out this doesn't work, right? So moving to the left or right, that's fine, but having a simple story is not going to work. So I think it's very important that we keep people like you, spatial engineers, that are still willing to make this complex story to show where are actually all the nuances in the debate, and really get the story out based on facts and not on, kind of wishful thinking. So that's why I picked this picture. I thought, okay, it's important to see where are we standing at the moment, but we continue to, keep our relevance in an international society that is changing, and we need to inform that society. That's what I wanted to say for my pitch. I don't know if there's any content questions related to that. Of course, you're more than welcome to pose them to me, but that was it.
Thank you, Thomas. Well, and to all the students and alumni specifically, this is of course the moment to ask your most urgent questions about the program to the program director. But let's start off with his pitch. Any questions on the pitch?
Finally, a chance to ask critical questions back to my old supervisor. So, Thomas, I'm wondering, why do you think it will change? So you said that this fact-free politics will change eventually, but why do you think that that is the case?
Well, we see that it is a very good sales pitch, right? It's easy to sell to a voting public that you have the solution. Yeah? But of course, if you have to show that you have the solution and it doesn't work, you will find out that actually it's much more complicated. And we saw that, we see that now, for example, the nitrogen crisis was mentioned. And we see that actually reducing the number of cattle is a really important step forward. But if we just impose it, apparently it doesn't work. But if you do it in a systematic approach where you involve the farmers from the beginning and they kind of come to that conclusion themselves, we can make that step. So I think the point at the moment is that some politicians said, oh, we'll fix it. And for the Netherlands specifically, they said, we will go to Brussels and we'll negotiate a special situation for the Netherlands. Now, what is interesting, there has been an assessment of the current, so if you talk just for the Netherlands, for the current hoofdlijnenakkoord, I'm not too sure how to translate that, headlines agreement, whatever, right, by the Environmental Assessment Agency. And they said that it's very much focused on the here and the now, right? And that's exactly what we don't do as spatial engineers. We look at the longer term and we look at the everywhere. And I think that's actually what I see as a shortcoming at the moment, but they will find out it simply doesn't work that way. We can't just hide ourselves behind the borders and kind of think we fix our problems, they fix their problems, because everything is interconnected. So I think at some point you will find out that internationalization is important. So perhaps something I forgot to mention here, we actually got our certificate for internationalization last year during the accreditation, right? That of course is nice for the students to graduate, but of course we got that because of the students that already graduated, right? So I think also those are internationally oriented. And so I think you will find out that a simple message simply doesn't work, and it is much more complicated.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Thomas. Does this mean that you as a program director are going to go to the ministry and explain the minister, maybe you should come and talk to our alumni, because disease vectors, we know all about it. It's not as simple as it looks like. Is that a role that you foresee for our alumni?
Well, I don't have their number yet, but we have some entrances. So yeah, I would, if they would invite me, I would certainly come there and do that. Yeah, no problem.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, Gerard, you know that we have lots of alumni. Maybe you can involve them at some point. Yeah. Are there any other questions to Thomas?
Yeah, maybe you've been asked this question a number of times already, but what do you say about the future of the program with the increasing the internationalization in the Netherlands? How does that affect the program?
That's a very good question. It's hard to make bold statements about it. I think it might affect a little bit that for people from outside Europe, it's not very attractive to come to the Netherlands if they see the general news. But if they dive in and they find out about spatial engineering, if they would see the testimonies from our students, I think they would still come, right? So I think in that sense, we're not too worried about that. Of course, a major issue there still is though financing, right? And of course, there are some plans to reduce financing, so that would severely affect us, of course. At the same time, I think that's also why we organize these events and we have social media. We're having the social media campaign coming up, right? I think we should inspire people and continue doing that, right? Because I think we believe in this program and also in the facts behind it. And I think basically we should spread the word and keep on spreading that word. So, yeah, and I hope that we also get it. Actually, we're quite well known now outside Europe. We should get more known inside Europe. And that's actually the biggest struggle for us at the moment, to show people how valuable this is. So we're always very happy with the stories from our alumni and what they do, and that is very inspiring. I think that's also what Gerard said as an advice, right? If you try to pitch yourself, make it very concrete. And the stories that you guys share are very concrete, and that helps us. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like to link into that. It's been mentioned a couple of times that people need to explain what is spatial engineering. The concern of international mobility, I think we want to continue to teach everybody who's interested in the program.
Yep.
What can our alumni do to make the program better known if they want to do so? Is there anything concrete that you have in mind? This is what they could do.
Well, of course, just mention everywhere that you are a graduate from ITC and that you are a spatial engineer. And some of you do already a great job. You know, I can see it on their LinkedIn profile. They are very proudly stating, I'm a spatial engineer. That's for starters, of course. But I think also, if you do end up at a company, there's often trainee programs or whatever, and you know, you can think of perhaps we can link up there. Right? We've got Geoversity in the making now. I think there's a lot of on offering there as well, and I think we can basically show we can show sneak previews or anything to make people aware of what spatial engineering is and how it can help. So the concrete examples, and I think our alumni can spread that word very well.
Yeah, one of the things that I also often heard is that if you have a complaint, tell us. If you have a compliment, tell the world. Are there any other questions? Because otherwise I'm going to suggest that we're going to move on to the panel discussion, because we've got a few statements on the programs and I'd be keen to hear what our speakers of today have to say about that. Let's move into a panel discussion, and I'd like to invite all the live speakers from this afternoon to join on stage.
I think we're four, yeah. Ja.
Laat de studenten verbinden.
Ja, we zijn met z'n vieren. Ja, als iemand niet gekomen.
Ja.
Ja.
Ja,
en Mai is helaas niet hier.
Where's John? He left. John!
John.
Kisanet is going in the wrong direction. Yeah, she's there.
Kisanet is on her way. Now it's a little bit complex because behind you is a screen, and I will just read out the statements being made there for you.
You want to see swap?
So what is your position if I make the statement that a spatial engineer is basically a knowledge moderator? You know enough about topics to just moderate the knowledge. You're not a specialist in anything, you're just informed about lots of little things. Who can I give the word first?
Would you like to say something, John? How do you see that? Do you know sufficiently little about a lot of things, or are you more specialized in that?
So basically, are you a generalist? You have a very broad overview of lots of things that are happening, but you're actually not a specialist.
Well, yeah, that's tough. But I think it can be a combination of the two, to be honest. I don't see how it can be mutually exclusive. You can be a specialist in one certain thing, but still have an affinity and a desire and a thirst to be able to connect other things. But you can also be very broad. I think it's also about the person as well. But the program itself trains you to at least be able to connect to other disciplines so that you can know enough. But if you now decide to focus a bit more, or you want to stay on top, to oversee things, I think it's up to you. You want to add anything?
Okay. Well, I personally am more of generalist, I would say. I know a little bit of everything, kind of. I'm more into managerial kind of instead of, but that's also my interest. In my work right now, there are some things that requires me, like John said, that sometimes you might go deeper in my tasks, it requires me to be very good at certain skills. Like if I'm transport modeler, then there are certain things, programming or data analyzing things that I have to know very deep, then I do that. But in general, and most of the time, I am a little bit of everything, so I'm more of, on the top.
Perhaps to add to this, we used to have this fantastic phrase that we go for T-shaped skilled people, right? So you go into depth into one domain, and then you also have a broad overview. Then came the pie-shaped skills, so you go into depth into two domains, and so you've got two legs. Perhaps we're going to M-shaped skills, where you have three. But of course, the wider you go, the less deep you can go. I think what is a key element, though, of a spatial engineer is flexibility. So you could have gone deep into one topic, but you also have this ability to learn new things. Because I think lifelong learning is simply the default these days. And I think that's what we should train you guys with, to be honest. I don't know if you want to add anything. There's a question. And there's a question in the room as well. First question. Yeah, you want to get the microphone?
No, it's input. It's input. So my name is Anne. Of course, an alumni, and now I'm working at a municipality. And what I notice is that this sentence really applies to me. Because in my work, I'm doing a lot of different things. So I'm learning about 3D, I'm learning about traffic, the energy crisis, all kind of things apply. And this lifelong learning thing, it's kind of half my job. So I'm working for a municipality, and what am I doing? I'm just reading, and learning new things. And then sometimes I give a little bit of advice to another team about how they should incorporate spatial or geo into their specific field, into the energy sector. Also with the new omgevingswet, I don't know what the name is in English, but a very interesting topic that requires spatial engineers, I would say. So for me, it's very recognizable. I also see that many of my colleagues found great jobs as a specialist. So they might have focused more into one little topic that they found maybe by looking into a lot of topics beforehand.
I think that's a very nice summary of how you can look at it from both directions. Now, not all of you might have heard, but I heard, "Oh, that hurts," when the statement came. And I'd like to very much hear from you why that hurts.
No, it depends sometimes, because sometimes also starting your thesis, because in thesis you have to really go in, and before that you are flat and you are like white, and then you are like, yeah, what do you actually do? And then I think it's very also difficult to really go deeper, because also the thesis felt like you're a bit lonely. It's not easy to go into the details. And why it hurts, I think maybe because, what do you do? And I feel like I do so much, and I feel like I contribute so much, but at the end, maybe others don't really see it because I'm not really specialized in one thing. Maybe something like that. Can't really... Behind the scenes, exactly, behind the scenes, all the hard work behind the scenes.
I hear exactly what you're saying, and what most of you don't know, before I came to ITC, I was the program manager for the new master program at the university, Humanitarian Engineering, which combines social sciences with engineering and basically is into problem solving, engineering for society. And there we had exactly this discussion. What are we creating? Are we creating just a generalist who doesn't know anything? And we came to the conclusion, no, we're creating a new field. We're creating the specialist who knows what expertise is needed to solve a problem. So your expertise is not in any of the application domains. Your expertise is, how do I connect the knowledge? How do I make sure that somebody who sits in a medical field can talk to the person who looks at climate change, who can talk to the policy advisor? Because those people, they don't know how to talk to each other. So basically you're the translator of all that knowledge fields, bringing together that knowledge, and with that, being able to tackle the complex problems. So the unifying element, that is your specialty, in my view. I'm going to continue because it's not about me, it's about you. Well, I think everybody knows that this is true, right? There is no work field for a spatial engineer. They are basically just encroaching on the job of other people. Who may I give the word? I think I'm going to start with Gerard, because Gerard, you so gently passed it on to the audience that you get to now start with your reflection.
Well, to a certain extent, Jelle, the very last remark you made on the previous statement is in contradiction with what is stated over here. Because to a large extent, it is not just encroaching on the work field of others, it is the skill to organize communication between different fields is a specialism in itself, just as you said with your experience from this other master degree. So this is too humble I mean, one should be proud to be a spatial engineer, because just as an example, half a year ago, a number of colleagues of mine of the National Climate Research Initiative organized a large workshop with 130 people, policymakers, people working at municipalities, scientists, to talk about urban transitions. It took 1.5 days before people started with the beginning of understanding. I mean, their task was to draw up a common work program for how to organize such an urban transition. But people were talking I mean, of course, they were sitting to each other, they were talking to each other, but they didn't understand each other. I mean, to really reach understanding in a multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary field is a specialism in its own. And one should be proud of it if you are able to master that specialism.
So your conclusion is, I don't agree.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. I heard Paula say, like, it feels like I'm working behind the scenes. Basically, you're not getting the recognition for it. And I think the last slide that Gerard showed, where he said this is the traditional way of thinking, individual excellence, one person being highlighted for doing a job. And I think that is indeed not a spatial engineer. So it is about this interdisciplinarity, really bringing fields together. That is really an art. Not everybody can do it. So that you said it's hard, yes, for sure it's hard. It's pretty bloody tough. Exactly. And it's also hard to get recognition for it. And that's because the system is still a little bit outdated on this, and we should much better recognize this teamwork effort, etc. That's of course upcoming, and we see much more appreciation for team effort, etc. Although you will notice we also fell in the pitfall because we have the social media award, and again, we're highlighting one person while everybody was basically contributing to it, right? So this is a traditional way of thinking. We have to get a little bit out of that thinking, but and as a spatial engineer, perhaps you also have to become a little bit robust for that, right? And see for your intrinsic motivation what you achieve by bringing those people together or getting something done. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Okay, now I think neither of you were trained as a spatial engineer. What do spatial engineers think about this? How do you perceive it, and how are you perceived in the workplace?
Yeah, okay. I definitely disagree with that, but also we as CWAP disagree with that because also, well, CWAP, Spatial Engineers Without Borders, right? I mean, the fact that we are able to not only bring people from different background and then being able to know where these people fit into, but also the way we see things, the way we're able to look at a problem and not necessarily. Sometimes when you're just specialized in a specific field, you can get lost in trying to solve the problem. But we have the ability of zooming out and being able to see what could be the solution to a certain problem. So I think that's also something we're bringing in, and the fact that we are flexible, that's also something, for me personally, I've been an entrepreneur, I've been a modeler, I'm a founder and a data analyst, so as individual, but also a lot of us, all spatial engineering, so we have this kind of versatility, so I disagree with that. But it's also true some people encounter problems on finding job because they're not specialized in a specific field, but that's Thomas already mentioned that it's because of the not the awareness of not being there. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Comment from the back.
Maybe as a contrast, it's not necessarily easier if you have a specialism to explain. I'm a civil engineer, I'm not, but imagine. Then you have to explain to an employer what you actually did, because they have a preconceived idea of civil engineering, which is usually outdated, because the field is evolving rapidly. There are, in civil engineering, there are things that are very close to spatial. There are also more classical examples of civil. So you still have to explain, always. And then, I'm an electronic engineer. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I study nanofibers at sub-zero temperatures. You still have to explain. So actually, when you're a spatial engineer, you just can explain from the start. You have an open podium and make it what you want. So it's not negative. It's positive.
Thank you, Victor. Is there any other comments or input from the audience? Straight to the right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. I would want to say, like, they don't yet know that they need us, like the people, because they probably have a problem, but they don't know like how to solve it, and because it's not a very known subject, they just don't know that they need us. So we need to show them. We need to find the problems we want to tackle, go to those companies and just tell them who we are and how we can help them.
Thank you.
I think this field for us, but we need to explain ourselves. So I currently work for Rabobank, and I'm known as a data analyst. And when I first applied for the job, I applied for a GIS analyst job. But my current manager was like, I don't have a job for you. The GIS analyst is not a job for you. But she gave me an opportunity, and I had like a trial period of trying for her to understand what exactly a geospatial engineer does or a spatial engineer does. And in the end, I became like a project manager who just managed my projects, work with different stakeholders, both in the farm, because I work with farmers, I work with the different departments, and I also use different knowledge. So I think a spatial engineer is basically a project manager for a geospatial field who works both with stakeholders and also help in making decision-making for different fields. I don't know if that makes sense.
Now, how did you go about convincing the Rabobank that it was a great idea to hire you, even though they thought there's no job for you here? I think that might be very useful for a lot of the other students, alumni around here. Okay. What arguments did you use?
I really can't explain exactly what happened, but I interviewed for the job, and they were like, there's no job for you, but we will try and see if we can give you a different opportunity. So I asked if I can get a consultancy job, because I knew I could do a job, and I really wanted to do something in forestry and agriculture. But because I did spatial engineering, they said I did not have enough experience for forestry and agriculture for any job I applied, any company I applied. So then when I went to the new manager, I was like, you can just give me an internship and I can show you what I can do, or you can give me a consultancy. I'm willing to take anything. So she was like, I will give you a 3-month trial, and then we'll see after that. So after that, I got an extension, and it all went to being a permanent position.
And now they can't do without you anymore.
I guess so. I hope so.
Ivan, I'm looking in the back. Is there anything online? Anybody online? No? Then I'll continue with the third statement. Spatial engineering is too innovative, and basically nobody knows about it. And maybe you would like to reflect on that, John.
Well, I would say the word spatial engineering, in quote, could be unknown in many places in terms of what people how would you say it? The expectations are different, so people just think about it differently. But what spatial engineering is all about, when you actually explain to people, then people can understand and know what it's about. So there has to be that willingness to actually explain this in clear terms, relevant to the audience, because spatial engineering could mean different things to different people.
Do you think it helps or hinders that people don't know what spatial engineering is?
I like to see the good things in everything. Just like you said, it gives an open platform, an open stage for you to really tailor it.
Anybody else in the panel who'd like to reflect on the statement?
Yeah, I think it's a strength and a weakness. I think we should grow the name of spatial engineering. So when we were re-accredited, we got advice from the committee to reconsider the name. Actually, this morning we had a curriculum development day. We got some really nice creative suggestions from some people. At the same time, we think we own it. We should actually continue building the name of spatial engineering. Gerard just told me he was in contact with a HBO in Zeeland. They're thinking of setting up a HBO program, something similar, right? Also with the name of spatial engineering. And I think the big misconception that we're struggling with at the moment is the word engineering. A lot of people think engineering is something with building stuff and electronics or whatever, you know, and they don't realize that engineering is actually fixing problems. I see there a very nice bag hanging over there that has this very nice definition of an engineer on it. As someone who solves problems that you did not know existed using methods you do not understand. And exactly that is what we do, except we do understand the methods, right? And actually we do know what the problems are. So I think it's actually, we're even better, we're engineer 2.0 in that sense. Yeah, the world needs to find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I think I completely agree with that. So, yeah.
May I want to ask?
Yes, sure.
Yeah? If the chair allows me, of course. I disagree with the concept too innovative. I mean, that suggests that there is anything bad about innovation. A master program or any educational program cannot be too innovative. I mean, the society is changing rapidly. Science, so I get a very bad feeling when I read the sentence or the two words too innovative. No, that cannot never be true. It's true that few people know about spatial engineering as a program, but as Thomas already mentioned, I know of at least several places in the Netherlands where people are thinking, my goodness, we should develop something similar, as you did in the humanities faculties. People realize we need this new thing. So maybe the fact that people don't know about it, you should tackle maybe in a way that the lady in blue, sorry I forgot your name, but you did it in a very smart way. But you should realize what companies are looking for. Ask them what they are looking for. Because if you look at new European regulations about what companies have to report as of next year on all the environmental impact they have in scope 1, 2 and 3, all that stuff that you may be aware of. I mean, companies are in need of people who have an overview. So ask them, what do you need? And don't start talking at length about what you did and what you did, but show them as you did what you can offer. Then you are shying away from the name issue, but simply show your value in the problems that these people have to tackle.
I just remembered something when you were speaking. I just remembered. So I did my internship at the bank, at the World Bank, right? Well, we call it at the bank because it's famous.
We at the bank.
We at the World Bank are just the bank.
But so I did my internship while I was here in the Netherlands. When I think you're all doing your internship as well. And then it was the first time at the bank even hearing for them to hear spatial engineering. And then after I did my 3 months internship, this was after 5 months or so. The manager called me one day and he said, I heard he was in a meeting in Australia or something, and someone from the Netherlands was representative, one of the ministers were there, and then he heard the spatial engineering again, that name. And then he called me and said, oh, so this spatial engineering is only known in the Netherlands? I would love to hear more about it. Maybe we can do a conversation, but we had a schedule. I just remember that, and then even that name, it's a trigger, like people want to hear more about that. What is it about? What is this spatial engineering? What can you bring to the table, or what are you going to add, the values you're going to add to the company? And these conversations stayed, and now I still work there. So I just, wanted to say that.
Now the question is, of course, did you pitch spatial engineering then to the director of World Bank?
I did.
You did?
I did.
Yeah.
But well, not always straightforward, but I use all the words we use, like empathic engineers. I use the words, well, every time you are pitching to an organization you want to join, you let me borrow that mic. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I mentioned that we are empathic engineers. That.
Still
Have I now?
That's working.
Okay. So I mentioned that we're empathic engineers who tackle wicked problems that they do. Well, I went to the website of the World Bank and look all the problems they are trying to solve, and then of course shape my pitch based on that as well. But it's also true, even like coming here, I was so very passionate about creating an impact and stuff. And it all relates, like what we do, the projects we did in Masai Mara, trying to solve the wicked problem. I still have all these projects we did in my mind. And then these are the things that they do at their organization. So it was really easy for me to blend in what we do to the things that they are working on. Like if you're working on food security, trying to build a road to a certain area that don't have road, we are the right people and things like that. So yeah, it was easy.
Easy, but still it had to be done.
Yes, go to their website.
Yeah. Gerard, what I liked very much in your comment is something that we discussed this morning as well. I think most of the people know that the Dutch university landscape is a little bit under pressure, and some people are concerned about it, but fact of the matter is universities are never constant. The only constant is that we're constantly changing and we need to adapt. And I think that's also what the program really prepares you for. Now, when it comes to changing, I need to change this slide, but it doesn't seem to be responding anymore. I think the computer has frozen on this end. Is there anybody who can tell me what the next statement is? Otherwise, we're going to have to restart the program first. No, now it's down.
There you go.
Really strange. Technology is not with me today, but well, I'm a simple biologist. Sorry about that. Is it difficult for spatial engineers to position themselves on the job market? And what would help them? We have heard already quite a few statements today, how people are challenged about it. But maybe now the question is formally on the table. Is there somebody in the panel who'd like to reflect on this? Or maybe in the audience to set off the discussion.
Yes. Is it on? Yes. Well, I just want to say that I think we have already discussed quite a lot on this topic. And what I have been doing all this lustrum, taking notes, what to add on my application for my internship. So all the aspects that went through, so I just noting it down. So everything that we discussed until now, it's what we can offer to the job market. I just want to say that.
Now, I would like to link into that because you say that you're working on your internship application. And yes. I know there's quite a few alumni in the room or people who have a warm feeling for spatial engineering. If you do have an interest in getting alumni from the program, do reach out to the program management that you would be welcoming one of our students for an internship. Because it is a hard thing to do, no matter how important the program is, how good the program is, how good the students are, a company will always be hesitant unless they have an internal link to the program. So if you're interested in also, as an alumnus, inviting our students to your program, reach out to our alumni coordinator who stands there in green, and internship, and then let's see whether we can make some magic there. In the panel, do you want to reflect more on the positioning? Yep.
Yeah. What I can say is, I think first, think of the things that you are interested in. If you're interested in data analysis, then select all the companies that work on this. The first thing I did, for example, for my internship was I selected 3 organizations that I want to work in. When we were told that we were going to do internship, I select NASA, World Food Program, and the World Bank. And then it's not like it's not like I was the smartest person and that's not the case. I just select the companies first. I select what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Or these are the companies that are big organizations and who work on these things. And then I just have to make sure I join there. And to do that, the fact that we were saying, oh, it's flexible, versatile, this and that, we have to use that, right? You shape yourself towards that. If it's open, if we can blend it in a way that we want, and then select the organizations you want to join, list out the things that you want to work on. Of course, the skills, you might have it or you might not have it. The skills you can always develop. You just have to be open-minded and you have to work your way through to make sure you get the skills. But just be open and then select what you want and go do it. I think that's what I say. Yeah, thanks.
Nicely spoken.
I was...
No, that's okay.
May I add something to that? You may know in Dutch the problem of the sales manager of wc Eend, or to say it differently, the problem of selling, imagine you're a sales manager selling the best fluids to clean your toilet. If that sales manager is telling that your fluid is the best there is, it's completely unbelievable because you are the sales manager. So the problem, if you are a student in spatial engineering and you have to explain that that's the best academic master you know of, yeah, obviously you're saying that. So you have to think about ways that others are doing the work for you. And there are various ways of thinking about that. One of them is lining up with other similar multidisciplinary studies, both at this university and other universities. I mentioned the initiatives at the Hogeschool Zeeland in Vlissingen, where people want to do something. You mentioned, Jelle, a similar initiative in the social domain. Line up with them, also in terms of student associations, that you are a collective and thereby stronger than when you have to do the sales of your education yourself. And there's a second suggestion I would like to make, and that is, I mentioned in my talk the development of the climate center here at this university. There are climate centers now popping up at several universities. There's the national initiative, the KIN, the Climate Research Initiative in the Netherlands. I mean, try to do, and that now I'm talking to the green lady over there, try to find out whether you can do your internship in relation to such a climate center, because that's climate in the broadest sense of the word. It can also be a food problem or a mobility problem or an energy problem. Because these guys at the climate centers are fighting the same thing. They have to advertise themselves, they have to promote themselves. So if you line up with other agencies who have to promote themselves, it makes life easier than when you're just on your own at the World Bank. Of course, there are very smart people like over there who succeed, but try to introduce multipliers such that your chance of success and the fact that this educational program is so important becomes well known beyond the range of these 50 people in this audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard.
Yeah, maybe I can also add. I think it's also important for you to be visible, right? You have to show your product, show what you can do, either on LinkedIn, have the website, so that people can tell and see. You don't have to always you will not always get the opportunity to have to explain to people. Maybe they don't meet you, but then they can go online, they can see what you're doing, and in very, very quickly they can understand, okay, this is what you're doing, and then you can get the opportunity.
Then I saw a hand coming up in the back of the audience. Victor?
Sorry, I have a bit of my voice today. A tip from somebody who has been in dozens of hiring committees. I have, and a few of them I was in a job interview for my own sake, and some I was in the committee. Once you are in a job interview, people have read your CV, and they accepted you. They think you're interesting. And one of the things that make you interesting is not just your CV, it's also what you do, what you did. It's not just the subject you studied, it's also what you did. Where did you go? Are you traveling? Are you doing extra stuff? It's just, who are you as a person? Because the purpose of the job interview is to see if you fit in an organization. Because you're already there, you're behind the table. And you would be surprised how few people actually read about the organization they apply to, not even looking at the website, not looking at the mission statement, not looking at what the organization think for themselves. I see Gerard nodding. So you are talking to somebody who has not been bothered to read the ITC website. Well, then you can say, I got lost in there, but then I know at least that you tried. So, but why is the ITC here? We have a strong sense of mission, a strong sense of purpose. If I have a candidate at the other end of the table who has not even bothered to read that's a lot less interesting for me, because I want to see, do you fit? Do you work well in this organization? So really, really do your homework when you apply for a job. Really read about the other organization and try to find out, what are the different components and what are the different parts of that organization. Do your homework. It really helps. It gives you an edge over many candidates who usually don't. So, just a tip.
I think,
yeah, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, can I add a comment? Yeah. Thank you, Victor. But I think it's not all about being interesting for you or not. Yeah. May I ask a question? How many of you are internationals? The current students? No, I mean out of the Netherlands, who cannot, okay, out of the Netherlands. Okay, 2, 3? In between? 4. Okay, yeah. I'm asking this because I think that what do you think? What is the most difficult barrier for you when you want to enter the job market? What do you think?
In the Netherlands or in Europe?
In the Netherlands, yes. Yeah, I
Well, but maybe you can tell us what you think
yes,
the most important skill is that people need.
I think, and a lot of experiences behind that. So I believe that the language is very important. So if you want more collaboration with the industry, you should invest on that. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the common misconception and also something that the university is not always completely open about, and certainly students only realize it in the last half a year when they start looking, for instance, for an internship, that yes, everybody in the Netherlands speaks Dutch, but once you come to a company, not speaking Dutch all of a sudden becomes a hindrance in the hiring process. Even though you've done an internship there, they might then say, yeah, it would be nice to learn Dutch. And most companies are quite willing to help you with that, but they want to see that you've taken that initiative already, that you know some basics. And as you are studying here in the international environment, it's very easy to just not learn Dutch. But it will help you if you have the ambition to have a career in the Netherlands, and also for socializing. Typically, Dutch people socialize in Dutch. So if you want to build up a group of friends around you, then learning Dutch is a skill that is useful to have. And the university never says you should, but in practice, alumni tell us you should. Try to learn a little bit of Dutch, hang out with some people in the Netherlands, and pick up on that as well. So that's secondary skills. Well, one more comment? Yeah? The people at home can't hear it without the microphone.
No, I was just saying I'm a member of a working group, Employability for International Students, and the university is already looking into the Dutch language problem, and we're already looking at programs. There's a bachelor going Dutch already for international students, and we're now looking at a program also for the master students to prepare students also for the Dutch labor market, and also that involves Dutch intensive classes. So I think we're heading to the right direction. So I think that answers your question, that the university is working on it.
I think that's a great addition. And let's be honest, Dutch is not all that difficult. It's very easy to learn. I was about 4 years old when I spoke Dutch, so how hard can it be? Now, what should a spatial engineer absolutely not do for a future job? Would you like to reflect on what a spatial engineer should absolutely not hold as a future job? Do you have any idea?
Oh, no.
You can also completely counter that statement.
What should a spatial engineer absolutely not do? Not being close-minded. I mean, as a job. No, I think...
Is there any job that a spatial engineer can't do?
No, I don't think so. Right? No.
Actually, I prepared this question. But I would agree almost completely with Kisanet that I think spatial engineers can do a lot of jobs, but I think what you should be very careful about is that you have a very powerful means in your hands. You know how to handle spatial data and how to analyze it. We also trained you to be very inclusive, right? So we talked about equality and equity, and I think what is very important as a spatial engineer is to take this equity constantly in mind, because it's very easy, of course, to go on the job market, to go for the highest bidder, and to help them find, the best place to put windmills without, or how to deviate disregarding certain underprivileged groups' needs, etc. And I think that is where you as a spatial engineer should say, no, this is my line, because I'm an empathic engineer and I'm also an ethical engineer. So I have to take these principles on board, and that's why I wanted to have this as a discussion. I think spatial engineers can do anything, but I hope that we also kind of train you in, taking your social heart at the right place and making sure that you use all this knowledge that you have in a proper sense, that you're also looking at the underprivileged part of society.
Now, Thomas, if you say a spatial engineer can do pretty much any job, they basically become a labor market chameleon. You're making that sort of statement. What specific skills do our students get in the program that makes them so successful that they could, in theory, pick up a very wide range of jobs? Let's keep
Perhaps I was overstating a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the limits are in the use of spatial data and the integration of things. But I think that the self-learning ability that we try to train in our students is really what makes them special. Of course, multiple programs will claim that, and I think they might be right. But I think the example from Tracy, thank you. Yeah, I was almost there. Was very nice. You said, hey, I can do this, and you showed them that you could do it. And I think that can-do mentality, it came around already a few times, and I think that's really important. Yeah.
Anybody else in the panel or maybe in the audience who wants to reflect on this?
Yeah, I can say something. I don't think we appreciate enough the project-based learning that we do, because you get to the work as well, and you work mainly on projects, and it makes you feel really appreciative of the ability to work with others that you already learned, communication, intercultural skills that we learn here during the master's program. So I think this is also an additional skills that also helps you to work in different places.
So Gerard, unless you want to make a statement here, I'll pass on to the next statement. Actually going to take a quick look. How many statements do we have after this?
Last one.
This is the last one, right? Okay. So this is an interesting question. What's the most important skill for a spatial engineer to have? Technical insight, soft skills, or moral ambitions? I've heard a few hints already from the panel. Who would like to take a stab at this question/statement?
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, it's the wrong question. I mean, how can you ask this question after this entire afternoon about integral views, system thinking, and then I have to make a choice? That's a contradictio in terminis. I mean, I mean, a spatial engineer is not either A or B or C. It's all of it. So, and I actually like Thomas' remark about the moral ambition as well. And that's indeed part of the education, and it's good it's part of the ambition. Be a good integral academic. So I'm not going to make a choice. I don't like this question.
Gerard, do you remember the video that the University of Twente made a few years ago as a general promotion of science and scientific thinking? No, I don't. The title was, "What's the question?" Yeah. What's the right question? Yeah. And that's basically what the university tries to teach in all the academics. You need to ask the right question to get the right answer. So, but taken into consideration that this is the wrong question to ask, are there any reflections on the content of the question by anybody?
There's one.
Yeah, I'm Aza from the first year. I work for quite some time in Southeast Asia, mainly for a ministry in Indonesia and also some location intelligence companies there. Also for retails and F&B there, so retail and F&B companies there. And I faced quite some problems. I think I also read some writings in LinkedIn in Canada that there are so many geospatial programs that now has been shut down because we focus more on the technicalities instead of like us, spatial engineering, that focus on lots of different things. And I think that is a very important thing that spatial engineering have. So it's indeed the mix of these problems. So what I can say about the problems I faced as a worker or as a consultant at that time was that we mainly use geospatial technology as hammer. And we know people that wants to build a table, but there's nobody that understand their needs. So we have the hammer, but we cannot respond their needs of building a table. And that is happening everywhere, at least in Southeast Asia. I'm not sure if it's happening outside of Southeast Asia, but it's indeed what's happening there, and that is why I chose this program instead of the others. I compared this to several programs outside of the Netherlands too, in Australia, close to my home, also in Indonesia, and also in Singapore. So it is very important for us not to just look at technical insight, but also all of those.
I think that is a carried position from many people who are in the program, that all those skills are important and maybe dependent on the situation. One become more important than another. Is there anybody who would like to contribute to this position? Because otherwise I would like to invite you all to thank the panel for their reflections on these statements. And I'd like to thank you for your statements. You want to have a final word?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to say, like, after you graduate, or even now, while mainly for new students, even as you are studying and also after you graduate, maybe you might not find the job right away, or just maybe try to support each other, try to be open-minded, and also you might be overwhelmed because you might not find the job right there. I love that Golnar mentioned that you might need to learn language right away, especially if you want to stay here. That might be a reason. So if there are reasons that might hinder you, try to tackle them now as you go, because then you don't have to be overwhelmed right after you graduate, just one step at a time. But maybe supporting each other. We have a group, for example, we try to chat and we make sure we're in contact, and then we try to suggest new positions for each other, something like that. So maybe that might be helpful. I just want to mention that, yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, then I think a big round of applause is in order. Kisanet, for Thomas, for John, for Gerard. Thank you so much. Now, in the schedule, we have a final item before we go and sit down and have a chat with each other again. Social Media Award. Can I give you the word, Thomas?
Yes, please. Thank you, Tini. So, thank you. Okay, we're going to always go to the drinks, guys. But at the beginning of the year, we thought, okay, we need to give spatial engineering more recognizability on the internet, etc. And we wanted to use our students for it. So we basically asked the students, post more stuff on social media with the hashtag spatial engineering. And at the end of the year, we will give a little prize. And we repeated this a few times. And of course, me as a total noob had to make the final selection of who actually wins the award. Now, I can tell you I'm really not very good with Instagram. I am on Instagram these days. I kind of understand Facebook because I'm old, you know, so that's better. And LinkedIn, of course. But I tried to make a selection, so the final winner is a bit of a random guess, you know, that's fine. But it's nice to recognize that people made an effort. And before I start announcing the winner, I will make the runner-ups, right? So the honorary mentions. We had some really nice posts by Bin and Berenice. They did a few really nice extensive posts where they explained to the public what they actually did, and I thought it was very inspirational. But there can only be one true winner, somebody who really spent a lot of time. That's Asa. You started already before we announced it, actually. You made so many nice posts where you explained actually to a general audience what is spatial engineering about, why did you choose to study this, etc. So we have a little prize for you. You have to come forward, Asa.
Sorry, Thomas, but you
don't have to mention this one.
Oh, why not? Oh, I should have highlighted you. Well, you can be on the picture again. Smile there, please. Yeah. Yeah, we'll put that on Instagram. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I think Tini has to say something. Yes, that's a very nice idea. So if everybody can come here, we can make a picture.
And I think with this also, this is the end of the program for the people watching online. I would wish to invite you for a drink, but you should have come here. I'm very sorry. We are going to take a group picture, but thank you for joining us online. And everybody who is here, where do you want a group picture to be taken? Right in front here?